I'm also curious if we will see Moraine and Swan Sanche together at any point that isn't just a flashback. Because I feel like it might be kind of important to have some type of closure,
Yeah, especially if she's given the eyes to that blonde woman.
right?
I'm not letting
Right?
that go. Like, you can't convince me that's not what happened. I've watched it like 15 times.
For full podcast episodes, early access episodes, and ad free episodes, check out Road to Tarvalon on Patreon or YouTube memberships. For other ways to help support the channel, make sure you like and subscribe. Hello and welcome back to the channel. Amber here with Laura once again, and we are back to kind of follow through on some things we were talking about after the trailer had dropped. And of course, we have had many more viewing sessions of it since, but you were actually just watching it before we
Yeah.
recorded, right,
Well, I
Laura?
was actually listening to it. I
Was there
think
anything that stood out?
so. I think like the way it starts with like how the world is changing is probably going to be something that we see a lot of through the season.
Okay. Yeah,
Cuz
I
like
I would agree.
those first 30 seconds of dialogue are like cuts of Swan and Moraine speaking.
Do you think that that points towards more of a focus on Swan Sanche or maybe just the White Tower as a whole?
Yeah, I think that it's going to point towards like how the tower is changing at this point. And like you even hear Egwene say it at some point during the trailer where she says that the tower is basically going to fall apart if they continue doing things the way that they are.
This is something I'm actually really excited for because I think the first two seasons were just, it feels so much like they're really just trying to establish the world as it is. Like
Yeah.
these are the people, these are the groups, this is what you can expect from them. We haven't gotten that close up focus, I feel like, on the White Tower in terms of their politicking yet. So whether that be internal or external throughout, the world of the Wheel of Time, but
Yeah, we haven't seen a lot of the politicking. I mean, I guess we've seen a little bit of the internals of it, but not the externals. Up until now, like, if you're just a show watcher and you haven't read the books, up until this point, like, the White Tower has been kind of like a monolith of power.
yes.
And so I think that, like, season three for show watchers is going to be where we start to see like the cracks in that facade or even the like the degradation of power.
Yeah. I think that lines up really well with the books because as it's presented in the beginning of the series, it has that mystical quality like, ooh, wow, women, magic users, controlling, like in power. How cool. And then as time goes on, you're like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Right.
What's happening here? It kind of falls to that age old question of like, does power corrupt? But I firmly believe in the Wheel of Time. It's much more nuanced than that, where it's just like, ah, yes, those in power are people who are going to do things to keep that power for themselves.
Right.
And to an extent, yes, but there's so many different circumstances where I feel like that meme of Leonardo DiCaprio like pointing like this that there's so many little things where it's just like okay, but then this happened and that's outside of their control and this is happening and yeah, but I'm excited to see more White Tower, not just action, but politicking, the things that kind of pull away from epic fantasy into more of like low fantasy, where it's just, yes, like that big question of the light versus the dark, of course. That's like one of the main tenets of the story, but also the politicking, these really interpersonal, like deep relationships between characters where they're not all just black and white, good or evil. And I really love that stuff. So,
Is
yeah,
Elaida going to play a role in the politicking?
I think so. If we go by the books, definitely. I guess my biggest question is going to be how the showrunner and the writers really perceive Elaida's character, because it's even in the fandom, I would say it's kind of divided where it's like, God, I hate Elaida. She is the worst. She is just awful, terrible, terrible. And then you have other people out there who are like, okay, she does a lot of messed up things, but she can be a bit of a victim to outside forces, some that she's not even aware of. So this isn't really a spoiler. This is kind of like a meta theory.
Okay.
But at one point, Elida has a run-in with Pot on Fane,
Ooh,
and
my favorite sociopath.
yes. And in the books, he's almost like an eldritch terror. Like he's a man, but he's not a man. He's something different. He's changed. And you see him maneuvering different spaces, and the people that he comes in contact with kind of works up this like unhinged fervor around him. And he does have this case, or he does have this moment where he and Elida share space to one another. And the theory is that after that, she kind of just succumbs to whatever it is that he does to people. So there's that going on in the books where I really like this theory. I don't know exactly where I stand on it, because it's like how much could she be influenced? But then there's lines from characters where it's like after her brush with Pot on Fane, like what was it? I don't remember the actual line, but is it something like maybe she'd sell out her own family or something like that? I don't remember. I'm sure someone listening does, but it's
Well,
yeah, it's a moment.
for me, I know that this isn't like necessarily why they cast Shore Agdashlu, but for anybody that's seen The Expanse, her character Christian Avasarala, ultimate politicker. Which
Yes.
is why I was like, is Elida gonna play a role in politicking? Because if you're gonna cast somebody, what better person to cast than her? Like
Yeah.
she's already shown her like acting chops in that kind of realm. And so I really think
Mhm.
that like she's going to bring a lot to the story that maybe we haven't seen out of another character yet.
That's what I'm hoping. Like, I hope that with season 2, they kind of introduced this politicking and behind the scenes, a little bit of like a puppeteering Machiavellian aspect to Moraine's sister, Lady Envers.
Right.
So I'm hoping that that was just kind of like priming us for what to expect in terms of Andor and Kyrian and Tarvalin, because especially Tarvalin, when we talk about this aspect, what Robert Jordan called Deus de Mar, the game of houses, it's like, yeah, Kyrian was good, but the White Tower, like, they're on top of things. And so that's what I'm really hoping for going into it, where even in, I believe, New Spring, the prequel, one of Lan's comments about Moiraine is like a Kyrianan and an Aes Sedai. Like, holy crap. Like, I don't know if I want to get close to this woman because of how much she's capable of in terms of this like politicking and in the shadows maneuvering. And so hopefully we're getting some of that.
Yeah, definitely. I hope so at least.
I think it would be good. There's another line that I really loved in the trailer from Alana where she's like, we don't win battles with politicking, we win battles with armies. And I love just that little subtle focus, because it really points to, on one hand, like this being a question or maybe a theme of the season, where it's like, not just in terms of Rand and like how we get, the dragon reborn where he needs to be and what that looks like for everyone, but you bring it down on the smaller scale level, and it looks like she's in the Two Rivers with Perrin and she's telling him this. And so it's kind of interesting getting that because if we do get politics, maybe we're going to get this aspect where we're getting more of the Ajas and the mentality of like what does the green Aja stand for? And then in terms of like this white tower thing, I mean, you could use that line in both locations, like yes, in the Two Rivers, but is she also talking about what's happening in the White Tower? Like, is there going to be this battle for power where it's politicking and one side is like, no, 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 like that's not the way to go. Like, we nip this in the bud and deal with it forcefully. And so that's really interesting too.
Yeah, that's a good point to make because like the Greens aren't an Aja that you would necessarily think would be talented at politicking.
Right.
It just doesn't seem like a part of their like they're not it's not like the blues where it's about like, spy shit, covert behavior, deception. Like the blues would fit into politicking really easily, whereas the greens seem much more authentic in a way.
Yeah, like there's a time for talking and then there's a time for action.
Right. And it'll be interesting to see how like that all pans out.
I agree.
I think it's interesting how they're really kind of highlighting Moraine's zealotry in the like trailer.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, Moiraine is kind of a zealot as far as like the Dragon Reborn goes. She's like beyond ride or die. Like she's literal ride or die. And I think it'll be interesting to see how like this revelation that one will have to die while the other lives kind of thing
Mhm.
between her and Rand. Like I'm interested as a show watcher to see like where they take that because from a show perspective, Moraine's a bigger character.
Yes. Much.
Like
Much bigger.
right. So I think it'll be interesting to see like where they take this idea because like the idea of getting rid of one of the biggest characters on the show is kind of wild.
Are you hoping that it's not like a whole season fake out? Like,
Even if it is a whole season fake out, as long as it's not like a permanent death, as long as she, doesn't die her last death kind of thing, like I'll be fine with it.
well, hey, look, Ishi's in the poster
Look,
and we watched him die.
that's true, but he's also like much more magical than her. So like I think like with him it's like really easy to believe that oh he's going to be back. Death is not the end.
Okay.
But with her she's not like a 3,000-year-old like super wielder of channeling the one power. And does he even necessarily always channel the one power?
So here's the thing, the Forsaken have a different version of the one power, I guess, is the easiest way to describe it.
Okay.
The setup is in the Age of Legends, before there were any problems, Lanfear was a scientist. She could, through her, sciencing, she deduced that there was some other form of the one power out there. And she wasn't satisfied being as powerful as she was. I tend to believe that she was looking around and she was like, "Okay, I'm one of the top dogs, but I want more. Like it's not fair that men have this ability to be more powerful channelers where women could do more things and different things with it. Men had more like raw energy and she
Okay.
wasn't satisfied. So she goes off looking for it. She finds it. Turns out it's like the actual, like, to make it as easy as possible to understand, essentially like the one power that comes from the dark one. And it's called the true
That's what
power.
I was thinking it
So
was
she,
called.
yeah, yeah. So she pretty much like cracks the world open like an egg. And as soon as that's unleashed, that's when like everything jumps off. And
Okay.
so, yeah,
So are her and is she like regularly channeling the true power?
all of the Forsaken are.
Okay, so that also explains why they're so much more beast mode than anybody else.
It could be, yeah, but essentially just because they were like from the Age of Legends, people had more raw power during that time.
Okay.
Like it's probably like a genetic thing, like after thousands of years of the Red Aja gentling every male channeler, like you start to kind of like lose the, the talent, I guess.
Well, I can see that because then you're dependent on just one line for channeling instead of having like double line channelers.
Right? Robert Jordan never really goes into it. I honestly would love if the show explored that a little bit, or maybe just like had a couple nods to it, because it is, I don't know, it's another one of those kind of like meta questions within the books that it's like it's a part of the overall discussion among fans, but it's not like really heavily focused on.
Right.
But that, I mean, that gets into like one of the things that I wanted to say about, I guess I would say about some of these mixings of genre in the Wheel of Time, where not only am I excited because it looks like the trailer is really pointing towards that, but the Wheel of Time is, okay, I'm going to get this out of the way first. It's not the only story, like fantasy story out there where it's like fantasy elements and like a little bit of sci-fi. Like it's not the only one, but it's one of the aspects that I really enjoyed about it.
Right.
So I really want to see more of that, and I think this is the season that we're going to get a lot of it. And you can kind of just watch the trailer and understand that. The way that it's shot, like when we were watching it together and Leandrin is like suspended in the air, and the way that it just looks visually, you kind of get that like sci-fi feeling. You're like, she's gone full Agent Smith. And I'm like, yes, exactly, exactly. But like these rings that Moiraine is like suspended in midair in, like this feels like very blended of genres, and I'm so excited about it.
Me too. I really enjoy the blended genre.
I think it'll honestly be something that makes the show better. I honestly believe that, and this isn't a knock on the books or the show, but it being high fantasy, look, it's 2025. People have been reading high fantasy for so long, and these tropes of the genre are so ingrained in us that when you adapt the Wheel of Time and put it on TV, there's something about high fantasy that can feel a little bit outdated, especially in this good versus evil story, right? Like, it's not a new genre, it's not like groundbreaking. This, again, let me reiterate, this is not a knock on it. It's just how it is.
Right.
And so when you start to bring in these other elements, it starts to feel a little bit newer and fresher. And I think for people watching who maybe like aren't so going hard in the paint on their fantasy, it might give them another opportunity to explore something a little bit different and find something that's a little bit more exciting, I think.
Yeah, or like approachable.
Yeah, that too. It's deep in the story. Like the Shadow Spawn are essentially like bioengineered with like science and magic. The Age of Legends was a time of blending science and magic. And like if you start to work that in, you start to see the show and the story as something a little bit different, I think, especially when you're looking at this like ancient or lost civilization that had like really high technology, and then the civilization collapses and it just leaves these remnants, right?
Right.
And I think that's really cool. And it's at the point of season one, you're looking at the landscape, the way that the world looks like, the outfits, the clothing, just it has that more kind of like medieval feel to it. And it slowly, like throughout the story, starts to kind of turn into something else. And it's really fun. the Wheel of Time is definitely leaning on this like high fantasy, like classical mythology, classical high fantasy tropes, light versus dark, the hero's journey of it all, and all of these timeless themes. But we've got something else out there, and I'm so excited for just regular people who aren't deep into the story to experience that.
I think that people are gonna be pretty excited about this season, honestly. Like, especially with that trailer.
It's got a lot going on. I mean, we've got like lots of battle and action and magic like really thrown at us.
It really highlights how there's gonna be a varying difference of the types of things we're gonna see. So, like you were saying, we have battles and action, we have politicking and, the game of houses. We have whatever the main like core group of people are doing, like Nynaeve, Elaine, Egwene. I'm excited to see what the three of them get into this season. And then we have, like Perrin, Matt, and Rand and what they're going to be off doing. And not that they won't all be together, but just like, because it was kind of like those two little groups last season. And
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see, like, I hope that there's more of Perrin's wolf journey and that we don't just skip
Mhm.
over that and be like, last season was enough. That would be disappointing for me because I do want to see them kind of like unfold that a little bit more.
Yes.
And
He
like,
deserves it. I mean,
absolutely.
that character, it's time.
And like, I know that you probably wouldn't expect this from me, but I'm hoping to see like more about like some unfolding of Matt. Like, he
Yeah.
needs more depth to his character than he's gotten in the show so far. He can't just be like jokey, inappropriate, can't be a good friend, but now suddenly has like the fighting abilities of a god type thing. Like, there's got to be some unfolding of his depth.
Honestly, that's what I'm really hoping for is getting to the heart of what makes Matt and what makes him a favorite character for so many people.
Yeah, I'm really
Because
trying
on
to
the
give him a
surface,
chance. I'm really trying. I mean, Dagger on a Stick
look,
does a lot for him. Them as a duo really like ups his rating for me. But like part of it is because like there hasn't been a lot of unfolding of Matt or Perrin in the same way that there has been of all of the other main characters.
I'm a little bit like just because she wasn't heavily focused in the trailer, I'm a bit worried for Nynaeve this season. Like
Why?
I well, I don't know. I hope that at this point in the books, so okay. The end of season 1 where Egwene brings Nynaeve back from the brink of death. She looked like she was dead. It's whatever.
Right.
In my opinion, Nynaeve is the healer. I probably would have given that moment to Nynaeve, but she already had that like mass healing explosion.
Yeah, yeah.
And what was it, episode 3 or 4?
Yeah, and they kind of got to
So
set Egwene up
it's
for being really powerful too.
right, right. But in the books, at the end in Falm, it's not Egwene who frees herself. It is essentially like it's a collaboration. It's essentially Nynaeve and Elaine and Min working together to get Egwene out, but Egwene, she's no chump. She really like carries her own throughout all of it as well. And so I understand why some of these changes are made to make individual character stories more linear and have more payoff and less like collaborative. But I'm really hoping for at least like this big moment that happens for Nynaeve in the books. I'm sure we'll get it, but just not having anything to really focus on for Nynaeve besides her in the trailer, one kissing Lan and then two staring at Mogideon, I'm like, oh no, where's my girl?
Well, I mean, like, you don't see a lot of Elaine either in the trailer. I think her mom gets more screen time
True,
than her in the trailer.
true, true.
So,
So Yeah, maybe they're safe in it.
Maybe.
So I'm not
But
too
also
worried. I'm not too
they
worried.
had really forward roles last season, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if like their roles are going to be stepped back a little to let other people's roles shine this season, because otherwise it really is a
Yeah,
lot of ground to cover in 8 hours.
yeah, absolutely. It's oh yeah, so little time.
Yeah, I wish that they would make it 16 hours.
I wanted to ask you about the one character where I was like, watch the trailer again and see if you know who that character is with the fire sword spear thing,
I don't
like the
know
channeling
if it's just
weapon.
that I need to go to the eye doctor, but like to me, I can't see who I can't make out who it is.
Okay.
Who is it?
All
Do you
right.
know?
I know. I know.
Is it somebody we
I
already
don't think I
know?
should. Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
It's a character that we've seen last season.
Is it gonna be unexpected?
I think so.
And
I
it's
think
not
so.
Avienda? You're pausing for way too long. You should have just told me we're not playing 20 questions.
There's a reason we don't. Sure. What was it? Someone commented and was like, it'd be really hard to do these with a camera because I don't know how good you can bluff. And I'm like, yeah, well, ain't that the truth?
Okay, hell yeah. Is she a
uh,
channeler too?
mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that. Because we didn't find that out last
Yeah.
season. I had no idea.
Yeah. I mean, we
Hell yeah,
really didn't
that'll
get
be
a lot of
exciting.
Avienda.
I like her as a character too, so I'll be excited to see more from her.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun catching up with her and Elaine. And I think also really excited about Fail. I love working in a character who is not, not an Aes Sedai, not a channeler, not anything besides just like a really intense, like strong person. And I'm happy about that.
You know what I just thought about? So if that's Avienda and not Egwene, they were somewhere together to pick up matching outfits.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it must be like they were in the Aiel Waste together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
I wanted to talk about another little thing from the trailer that just I feel like I kind of overlooked. And this isn't like a groundbreaking observation or anything, but more just like, oh, that makes me happy.
Okay, what is it?
Those two river battle scenes,
Yeah.
getting to see like the lines of archers and Maxim being like loose. For one, it wasn't really touched on just how like hardcore the two rivers characters are as archers. Like Rand has a bow in the first season. It's whatever.
Oh,
He's
that's
not
their
really
thing?
using it. Yeah, like that's their deal. Like they
Okay.
are the best archers in, the entire world of the
Okay,
Wheel
that
of
makes
Time.
sense then why they seem so reliant on archers.
Yeah.
Okay, so that'll put a lot of that gives like a lot of context and life to the area too. Like the culture of the area.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, season 1 there just wasn't any time to focus on that. We were out of the two rivers first episode. That's it. And I mean, we
No,
haven't gone back
season
in real
1.
life like we see it in the Nynaeve test for the arches, but that's it.
Yeah, season 1 really made the two rivers seem like the Shire.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just a happy place where everybody knows each other, and yeah, it didn't really delve into the culture of the two rivers.
Mhm.
And it'll be nice for them to do that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get more time there and just it's like going back home, Like it feels good to be back in that location, but I want to see what Tam Thor is up to. I want to see Perrin having interactions with him. I want to see the overall like how Perrin is received in the two rivers when he comes back with what looks like Alana and her warder, it looks like they might be traveling together, or Alana's already there, doesn't matter. But if Perrin shows up with two Aiel, an Ogier, and like an Aes Sedai and her warder, like people are gonna be like, what has been going on this
Yeah,
past
that's
2 years,
that's
year
quite
and
a
a
little
half?
traveling
Like,
troop.
right. And so I think like on that aspect of just like how Perrin is going to be received is really cool. And it looks really nice to have like this battle scene in the trailer with the archers and Maxim, and it looks like Perrin kind of like leading this group, and I'm just excited for that. Like I know like it's going to kind of, at least I feel like it's going to be kind of a uplifting moment seeing Perrin leading, but also like working with these characters who within the Two Rivers are perceived as like these, they're almost like gods, Aes Sedai and warders are something to be feared and they're scared of and they don't understand, and they're on such a different level than how these people in a village feel about themselves. So like him coming back with them is just like so intense and so cool, and them leading like this whole village, like I'm just so ready for it.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. I'm hoping that they don't make us wait till the last episode for it.
Yeah, they probably
I
will.
was gonna say I feel like they will, but yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be nice. And it's especially because like, as you were saying, Perrin's been gone for 2 years. So it'll be interesting to see how the Two Rivers has changed too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And like,
Who's the wisdom? What's happening?
right. And
What's the
like
hot goss?
seeing Perrin as a leader, because that hasn't really been a role that we've seen him in yet.
Mm-hmm.
He's very much just been like kind of going along with others.
Yeah.
He's with Elias and then he's with Avienda, and whoever he's with is always kind of in charge. So it'll be really nice to see how he's taken everything that he's learned and then employs that as
Mm-hmm.
a leader himself.
Yeah. It's this I think is going to be one of the themes of the season, just like leadership. Like meanwhile, like we've got the Two Rivers thing going on, but meanwhile, elsewhere in the Aiel Waste, we've got Rand, is he going to be able to lead? Like we see him standing in front of what looks like thousands of Aiel who are like, in this almost like Colosseum type, totally
Right.
encircled. Meanwhile, elsewhere, we've got everything going down at the White Tower. Can Swan Sanche manage to hold on to control and keep her status as a leader of the Aes Sedai? I mean, it really feels like this is just a big theme this season.
Yeah, especially because like last season we kind of left off with Swan right after Lanfear ran roughshod over her, just treated her like a doormat and was like, "Get out of
Yeah.
here. I got a gate to open and cruise through."
That was so hard to watch. I'm also curious if we will see Moraine and Swan Sanche together at any point that isn't just a flashback. Because I feel like it might be kind of important to have some type of closure,
Yeah, especially if she's given the eyes to that blonde woman.
right?
I'm not letting
Right?
that go. Like, you can't convince me that's not what happened. I've watched it like 15 times.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that'll be interesting too, because like their last moments together in season 2, you can kind of tell like that's the end of their journey together.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that'll be interesting to see if there's any scenes like of closure between them, or if it's just like Moraine having flashbacks of what they used to be like, and like, her angsty guilt that she sometimes feels that doesn't really stop her from doing anything.
True. You know what? God love Moraine Domadrid because it's like, yes, you're right. Like that, those questions are probably always lingering in the back of her head, but she just shoves them aside.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said she's kind of a zealot.
Yeah.
And I'm not like hating on her for it, but she is kind of like a Rand al'Thor zealot. All like, if the White Tower doesn't bend the knee, he can't win. And I'm not saying, like, I get like that the idea is that she is right, but you also can't blame people for being like, the last dragon broke the world. Why are we trusting this one? Like, you're not exactly the most trustworthy either. So,
It's interesting. Like Maureen definitely has this like unstoppable force
yeah, because
behind
like,
her, you know?
when you're watching it as a viewer, it's really easy to be like, yeah, Moraine should get what she wants. She's always right, and this and that. But if you put yourself in the shoes of some of these other characters, I myself would be like, girl, what do you mean? Like,
Mhm.
you aren't the most trustworthy. He is a child, like, and you want us to put everything we have into this,
Yeah.
like, all in the hopes that he doesn't break the world again. And I can see where, like, they do get a lot of flack for that.
Maybe this season they will focus a little bit more on Moraine's humanity in terms of like this question of, for him to live, I have to die. If that's something sitting in the back of her mind after she exits the rings, then maybe it's possible that we start to see Moraine kind of thinking about her choices in terms of the people around her that,
I think
have
that'll be
suffered, I guess.
important.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't think that it would, like, sit well with me if she's like, well, for him to live, I gotta die. Okay, cool. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this isn't something that I want to see her enter into with, like, stoic bravery.
Right.
It'll be really interesting because that requires her to give up, like, control at some level. And she's a really
Yes.
controlling person.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how she, like, comes to terms with that loss of control.
I'm going to be keeping my eyes open to that point. The only thing that I really wanted to touch on, like, it's kind of depressing, but I feel like it needs to be said. It is, the show hasn't been renewed for season 4. And if you are interested in it, like if you enjoy the show, make sure that you're watching the show when it comes out. Like, don't wait, like, get it on as soon as possible. But I know that Amazon has like some kind of interesting metrics where, like, one of the things that they really go by is people who pay for Prime Video to watch a show. So, like, you reactivate Prime Video and then like your Prime subscription, and that's the first show you watch. Like if you're a hardcore fan, you might think about something like that. Just putting that out there because it might not be renewed. And the other question is like, what does that look like for me because I cover it so often? Honestly, I'll be pretty sad if the show doesn't get renewed, but it's not the only thing that I cover on my channel. So you're not going to see me quit YouTube because the show doesn't get renewed.
Look, there's still hope that it could be renewed. They could just
Yeah,
be waiting to
definitely.
see how those first metrics of the show roll in.
Mhm.
I just hope it's not like what we saw last season where it became this like online bloodbath where people connected
Look,
to
it will.
it. Yeah, but I mean, there's the online bloodbath,
Oh,
and
we're
then
talking about
there's,
Brandon
yeah, I'm talking
Sanderson, aren't
about,
we?
yeah, Slanderson. Um,
He needs to rein it. He needs to rein it in.
I don't know what he was upset about personally. Like maybe it's because Amazon was like, yeah, we love Wheel of Time. We don't love your stuff, so we're not even going to consider that. Um, but yeah, things like that happening, that's not good for a franchise. So I'm hoping to see less of stuff like that. And, people making sure that, like, most streaming services actually allow you to, like, do a little, like, in show rating. I can't remember what it is on Prime, but on, like, Netflix, you have, like, the thumbs down, thumbs up, double thumbs up thing. Like, make sure you're doing that for the show on Amazon. Even maybe sharing it.
What I was gonna say, this is kind of uplifting, but like I've done a video about it a couple weeks ago about like the future of it, is a green light for season 4 coming, maybe. Check that one out because there were some tidbits that I found online from like their Prime press release where it's kind of like making me think there's, some good momentum behind it getting renewed, but also they only just now renewed Rings of Power for season
That's what
3.
I was gonna say.
So,
Was it's
so
not
like it's
like
possible.
it's not uncommon anymore for shows to have to wait past the season for the renewal of the next season. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know if a lot of shows get greenlit for like multiple seasons out. I know that like Netflix did that with The Witcher and it kind of blew up in their face. And Prime didn't even do that with Rings of Power, like you were saying. And that's like
Mhm.
Bezos loves Lord of the Rings. Like he personally loves it. I read like lots of articles about it, about back when they like,
That's what happened with The Expanse too. He
yeah.
loved it to the point where he's like, I'm bringing it back from the dead.
Yeah, so like there's even with that being like his personal favorite baby, and even that didn't get renewed until after the second season had finished airing.
Yeah.
So I think that there's definitely still hope. And I really
Me
hope that they
too.
take this out to at least 6 seasons.
I would
Like
agree.
please somebody use the tried and true HBO formula.
Do it.
You make
Do
6
it.
seasons. And then unfortunately for HBO, they're like, everything's got to end at 6 seasons. Nothing can be good past that. Look, I'm not going to say that they're
Or we'll
wrong,
drag,
though.
or they will drag,
Look at what Showtime
or
did
they
with
will,
Dexter.
or they will drag it past, like, way past the point that it needs to go on. Like, no,
Showtime
was
destroyed Dexter.
Showtime,
They took it way too far. They
was,
should have cut it at a certain point, and then they did like the weird, like Deb being in love with Dexter thing, and it ruined the show for me.
was True Blood Showtime or
HBO, and
HBO?
they stopped it at 6 seasons.
Okay, I feel like True Blood, like, they could have wrapped it up around, like, 4,
Yeah, I think that they
5.
could have wrapped it at 5 for sure. Season 6 was
Mm-hmm.
the Billith season, which I usually like to just
The
block out.
Billith season.
I have a friend and one of my favorite things is that every so often she'll send me like voice recordings of her impersonating Bill Compton, and it's the best thing ever. We've gotten
Suck
so
it.
far away from Wheel of Time here, but yeah.
Suck it.
Every
I
so
mean,
often I'll send her one of this like random song that Bill was singing like in one of the flashbacks.
we have to cover True Blood
Ugh.
one day. Maybe we'll do a True Blood rewatch, at least like season 1,
Oh,
at
it's so
least
good.
season 1.
It's so good. I love it.
Yeah, for all of you listening who are not millennials, like I'm talking to you, younger listeners of Rosa Tarvalon, check out True Blood. If you have never watched it, just do it. It's like
It's the
what
perfect
an
blend.
era.
It's like they
What an
took
era.
fantasy, like creature fantasy, and then they blended it with a soap opera. And it's perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so as per usual, you can find me on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Discord. If you would like to join the Discord server before season 3 of the Wheel of Time, please do so. I know that we've got a lot of fantasy and sci-fi readers who are doing book reviews and buddy reads and stuff like that. If you're just looking for other book readers to kind of like chit chat with, it's a really nice place. And Laura, as always, thank you for joining me. We will be back shortly to cover more Wheel of Time, and we will see you then.